为此法会及一切众生，请传妙法论，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，殊证无生。Will the Shankar with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one. 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 Excuse me. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha. Welcome back to our lecture 156 of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. While I'm getting the slides, does anyone have any questions? I know Melinda has a question she sent to me earlier. Anyone else have anything you want to bring up? No? Okay, you can type in the chat box if you think of a question later. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to continue with the with the exploration of Parittas chanting, which is the Theravada equivalent of our practice of mantras or dharanis. They call it Parittas. It may seem a bit different, but the principle is the same, and a lot of it. And the reason why we are spending a bit of time on the Paritta is because I find that it helps us in our understanding of the mantras. When we practice mantras or dharanis like Om Mani Padme Hum or the Great Compassion Mantra the Shurangama mantra, understanding how Parittas work actually help us practice the mantras, how would I say, in a more informed way. Yeah. And it also gives you a bit of history about where mantras come from. Mantras are usually called the true words of the Buddha, but because I haven't read that many sutras, I haven't come across the explanation of the true words of the Buddha. But in my my exploration of Paritta chanting, they give one perspective, which is that the true words of the Buddha come from literally from the truth, from a person's virtue. And today we are going to explore that. And also, I have an epic story to share. Yeah, I think today I'm skipping that slide because we've gone through that slide before. Today, I think most of our lecture will be on a story, not just any story, but a story that Shakyamuni Buddha told to Venerable Ananda, and the story is now part of the what do you call it? Is a text that's known as the Perfection of Wisdom. So it's a Prajna text. Okay? It belongs in the family of Prajna, just like the Heart Sutra. So it's a Prajna text. It's called Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines. It's a commentary on the Prajna Sutras as taught by the Buddha. Okay. All right. So now let us look at what a declaration of truth is, because a declaration of truth is what some parittas are about. And I suspect many mantras are about as well. Okay. In Sanskrit, a declaration of truth is known as Satya Vachana or Sacha Vachana in Pali. It's an oath or vow in which the truth inherent in its words generates magical or protective powers. That's why when we use a mantra, we're actually leaning on the efficacious response. It doesn't come from us. It comes from the fact that the Buddha provided it, as well as the response of Dharma protectors. And it says, for example, when Prince Siddhartha first renounced the world and cut off his hair, he threw it into the air and said, "If I am to become a Buddha, may it stay in the sky." Due to this asseveration of truth, his hair was caught by the chief of the gods, also known as Chakra or Lord Indra, who enshrined it in a sometimes it's pronounced Chatya, sometimes it's pronounced Chatiya, in the Triumtrimsha heaven. What is a Chatya? A Chatya is like a mini pagoda. It's where you usually reserve for the Buddha's relics. It's like a mini shrine, and then you bow to it. So there are a few stories regarding when the Prince Siddhartha, after he left home, a few weeks ago, I shared with you the one incident in which he received a bowl of porridge in a golden bowl. And he said, if I'm going to be a Buddha, when I place the bowl in the water, it will float upstream rather than float downstream. And it did, it floated upstream. And this is the other thing that happened when he cut off his hair. Some people might wonder, excuse me, my throat suddenly seems a bit dry, excuse me. Actually, my throat has been very well behaved. Today, as the Weno for the evening ceremony, nothing happened. I was 95% okay. And then now it's starting to come back. So where was I? Oh, so some people may say, oh, how did he know he was going to become a Buddha? Well, from a Mahayana point of view, the whole reason the Buddha came to Jambudvipa, to be born in Jambudvipa, was to teach living beings, was to save living beings. And before he came, he was already I think it was I'm not sure it was a 10th ground or if there's a ground higher than the 10th ground, but he's as close to a Buddha as you can get. You know, he was a bodhisattva in the not in the Tushita heaven. Yes, he was in the inner court in the Tushita heaven. And he planned his whole birth. He planned which family would be a suitable family. He already knew which family to choose, where, the location. Even the gods, all the gods from the different heavens, they already knew. And some of the gods with the, how you say, like Venerable Ananda, who was a god with the Buddha, it was all planned, what was going to happen. So there's a sutra called the Lalitiswara. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it's in English is known as the play in full. It gives a full account of the Buddha when he was in the Tushita heaven, at that time still a bodhisattva, being reminded that he needs to become the next Buddha and save living beings. And then the gods planning, like which family is he going to choose, what are the conditions and all that. So it's called the play in full because it's all like a play. It's all pre-planned. Yeah. Okay, so that's a declaration of truth. When he cut his hair, he already knew he was going to become the Buddha. That's why it works. And the hair was suspended in the sky. Yeah. All right. The Buddha's disciple Angulimala offered a well-known asseveration or a declaration of truth to help ease a woman's labor pains. So there's a sutra. If you have the book called the Parittas, apparently every Buddhist household in Sri Lanka has a copy. Apparently, that's what they say. It's like to them, it's like the Bible is a Buddhist Bible. So if you have that book of Parittas, one of the 24 of that is the Angulimala Sutta. And in it, there's a verse that Angulimala says. It says, "O sister, ever since I was reborn in this noble birth, I do not remember intentionally taking the life of a being. By this utterance of truth, may there be comfort to you and to the child in your womb." So it is said that this protective sutta brings about an easy delivery for expectant mothers at the very moment it is recited. It was given to Venerable Angulimala by the Buddha and will last for the entire world cycle. Okay, who can tell me who Angulimala is and why is he famous? Anyone? If I don't get a response, I'm going to call your names and I can see all your names in front of me. Yes, Mr. Tan.
Father Angulimala, I think he was the cousin of Buddha. And then he's a killer, In the beginning, he's killer because he learned from the evil teacher, Asked him to kill and get the fingers. How many? Maybe 999 or what? Or 499.
Okay. Yes, very
finger,
good.
And then the last one, he come to the Buddha.
Yes, very good. Very, very good. I'm not sure about him being a cousin of the Buddha. I don't think he's related to the Buddha. I'm not sure. Okay. You may be right. But your second part after that, that is all true. So his name, Angulimala, in Pali means necklace of fingers. Literally means that. Because why? Every person that he killed, he would chop off their finger. Was it finger or ear? I think finger, right? I'm pretty sure it's finger. He would chop off their finger and he would wear it as a necklace. Yeah. So everyone was really afraid of him because, only a crazy person would do that. And of course, only a crazy person would be a mass murderer. So he had killed 499 people. Like Mr. Tan said, he was misled by his teacher. He had killed 499 people. I think in all of history, as a mass murderer, not in war, I don't know about that, but I think he's the ultimate mass murderer, right? I don't think there's been any other person that I've heard of that is personally responsible for the death of 499 people. Anyway, after 499 people, he was going to murder his own mother to make it an even 500. And the Buddha knew about this. And the Buddha also knew that it was his conditions had come together that the Buddha could save him. So what happened, and I'm not going to linger too long on this story because I want to keep time for the main event, the epic story that I have. Actually, I wasn't planning on telling this story at all, but yeah. So the Buddha appeared in front of Angulimala. And when Angulimala saw the Buddha, he said, "Oh, I think this will make a more worthy victim than my own mother." So his plan was to kill the Buddha instead. But when he tried to get close to the Buddha would always remain at the same distance. No matter whether he was running or he was walking, the Buddha in front of him would always be the same distance away. Then he shouted to the Buddha. He said, "Oh, hey, stop." And then the Buddha turned around, or maybe did not, and told him, said, "I have stopped a long time ago. How about you?" And that was kind of like a huato. It puzzled him a lot to the point that it overcame his murderous intent. And because of that, he became a disciple of the Buddha. So once, after becoming a bhikkhu, he left home. When he was out for alms, Venerable Angulimala saw a woman in labor, and the woman was having a difficult time delivering the child. So compassion arose in him, which is hard to believe because, mass murderer. But he said compassion arose in him, and when he went back to the monastery, he told the Buddha what happened. Then the Buddha said, "Okay, Angulimala, now you can go back into the village and say to the woman, 'Sister, since I was born, I do not recall that I have ever intentionally deprived a living being of life. By this truth, may you be well and may your infant be safe.'" Then Angulimala said, "Okay, but ever since I was born until now, I killed 499 people, so wouldn't I be telling a lie?" Then the Buddha said, "Okay, then Angulimala, you say instead, 'Sister, since I was born with a noble birth,' that means ever since he became a monk, ever since he left home, "I do not recall that I have ever intentionally deprived a living being of life. By this truth, may you be well and may your infant be safe." Let me drink some water. So, sometimes people remember that monks are not supposed to play doctors, and so they bring this up when they hear this story. But the reasons in the commentaries, it is explained that the reason why the Buddha did this with Venerable Angulimala was because Venerable Angulimala, due to his reputation, had difficulty obtaining enough food for his when he went on alms. Why? Because everyone was scared of him. Everyone still remembered who he was. So the Buddha did this as a way for him to show a different side to villagers, because at that time, Venerable Angulimala wasn't an arhat yet. Yeah, he was just like all of us. And as a result of him being able, so when he uttered these words to the woman gave birth easily, and a different reputation of him began to spread. And because of that, he managed to get enough alms food so that he could meditate properly. And that is why he became an arhat. I mean, there's one supporting factor on how he could end birth and death, because he received enough alms food that he had the energy to meditate. Okay, now moving on. It says in Buddhist texts, miraculous events are said to be a result of an asseveration or declaration of truth. Often, when a bodhisattva has given away some body part as an act of dana or generosity, that body part is restored as a result of one solemn declaration, as in the case of Sada Prarudita. Now, that's the story I'm going to share with you all in a few slides' time. And I think it's going to take up the remainder of the lecture. Then there's another tale in the Jataka of Arya Sura. Shakra appears in the form of a blind Brahmana to test the generosity of King Sibi, one of the Buddha's previous lives. The king goes blind when he donates his eyes to the Brahmana, but his sight is restored when he makes a solemn statement of truth that his charity is sincere, articulating, in effect, the Buddha's aspiration to seek the welfare of all beings. What is the Buddha's aspiration? To seek the welfare of all beings? Okay, this is a rhetorical question. I'm going to give you the answer. When you come to the temple, okay, and only in Mahayana temples, there are three things that you recite, especially at lunchtime. Okay, you definitely recite this. What do you recite? It's called the three Mahayana precepts, or the three Bodhisattva, or the three pure precepts. Number one, I vow to cut off all evil. That means you vow not to do any unwholesome deed. Number one. Number two, I vow to only do good deeds. Okay. And number three, I vow to save all living beings. In other words, I vow to benefit all living beings. So this Bodhisattva's aspiration to seek the welfare of all beings, that's vow number three. Okay, same principle, different words. All right. Okay. And then it says, according to another story, a young boy was bitten by a poisonous snake. The distraught parents stopped a passing monk and asked him to use his medical knowledge to save the child. The monk replied that the situation was so grave that the only possible cure was a declaration of truth. Okay, this is a very interesting story. Why? Because the story I'm going to share with you about Sada Prarudita, okay, is a bodhisattva, is meant to inspire. It comes from the Prajna text. It's a Mahayana text. And Mahayana texts are different from Theravada sutras in the sense that most Theravada sutras are very straightforward, instructional suttas. They tell you, this is the Buddha telling the monks what they need to do, what they need to give up. You know, it's very straightforward. Then when you come to the Mahayana text, like the Earth Law Sutra or the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra that we are reading, that we are learning right now, the Prajna text, maybe not so much the Prajna text, because the Prajna text talks about emptiness a lot. For most people, it's very confusing. But a lot of the Mahayana texts, a huge component of it is to inspire people. Because the Mahayana text already assume you already understand the Theravada text. You already understand why you shouldn't attach to the five skandhas, because non-self, why things are impermanent, you know, why everything is like an illusion, the mind only, because of Abhidharma. Then when you move to the Mahayana text, with all that knowledge of how to end birth and death, it is to inspire you not to end birth and death for yourself, but to use that to save all living beings. Okay? So, this particular slide you see in front of you about this boy bitten by a poisonous snake is different. Why? Because the examples of the declaration of truth, two of them are provided by the parents. And the parents are just ordinary people. Yeah, I have the story, but I'm not going to share it with you all today because I probably don't have enough time. So it'll be next week. Okay, next week, if everything goes well today and I can finish this story about Sada I always pronounce his name, difficulty pronouncing, Sada Prarudita. Okay, then next week we are going to look at how Paritta chanting is done in people's houses, and then we will look at this story about the parents saving their child who was bitten by a venomous snake. Okay, actually it's not poisonous snake. It's poison if you eat it, but if something bites you and poison enters, it's called venomous. Okay, all right. So now coming to the saga of Sada Prarudita. Okay, before we go into this story, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so this is now Shakyamuni Buddha speaking, and he is talking to Subhuti. You will find Venerable Subhuti being the protagonist in, or rather the person that the Buddha addresses in most Prashna texts. Why? Because Venerable Subhuti is foremost for his wisdom in emptiness. So it says, furthermore, Subhuti, one should search for perfect wisdom as the Bodhisattva Sada Prarudita has done, who at present leads the holy life in the presence of the Tathagata Bhishmaga Jitani Goshavara. Yeah, okay. So Subhuti asks, he says, how then did the Bodhisattva search for the perfection of wisdom? So I'm just calling the Bodhisattva from now on. And the Buddha said, the Bodhisattva searched for perfect wisdom in such a way that he did not care for his body, had no regard for his life, and gain honor and fame did not interest him. Okay, I know some of you have just come back from the city of 10,000 Buddhas, fully equipped, newly equipped Bodhisattva precept holders. So pay close attention. He found himself in the seclusion of a remote forest, and a voice up in the air said to him, "Go east, son of a good family." So he just heard a voice in thin air, There you shall hear the perfection of wisdom, and on your way you must not pay attention to the weariness of your body. You must not give in to any fatigue. You must pay no attention to food or drink, to day or night, to cold or heat. Why don't pay attention to all these things? Well, because these are the things that control the things that we do. We tend to live our lives by certain rules that are determined by day or night, time to eat, time to sleep, cold or hot. It controls, it affects the things that we do. So it says, you must also not make any definite plans either about inward or about outward things. In other words, anything to do with yourself and anything to do with the world. It says you must not look to the left or right, to the south, east, west, or north, upwards or downwards, or in any of the intermediate directions. So it means you must be steadfast, you must be totally sincere. In other words, okay, don't get distracted. Then it says, and you must not allow yourself to be shaken by self or individuality, or by form or the other skandhas. For one who is shaken by those, he is turned away from the Buddha Dharmas. When he is turned away from the Buddha Dharmas, then he wanders in birth and death. And when he wanders in birth and death, excuse me, then he does not cause in perfect wisdom, then he cannot reach the perfection of wisdom. What does this remind you of? Well, in the opening of the heart of Prashna Paramita Sutra, it says, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara illuminated the five skandhas, he crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty. And I always have this memorized, but on occasions like this, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara illuminated the five skandhas, he
saw that.
Okay. Yes.
He saw that
they're all empty.
Empty.
And he crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Melinda. Excellent. Yeah. So then the Bodhisattva said to the voice, "This is how I shall act, because I want to bring light to all beings, because I want to procure the dharmas of a Buddha." Then the voice answered, "Well spoken, son of good family." You see what he says? Because I want to bring light to all beings. Okay, so he has reasons, but the first reason is because of all beings. All right. Okay. Thereupon, the Bodhisattva again listened to the voice, and what he heard was this: son of a good family. It should be son of a good family. You should search for perfect wisdom after you have produced the firm conviction that all dharmas are void, signless, and wishless. You must shun signs, existence, and the false view that they are beings. You must shun bad friends. Good friends, however, you should tend love, and honor. They are those who demonstrate Dharma and who teach that all Dharmas are void, signless, and wishless, not produced, not stopped, and non-existent. Okay, so there's the guidelines given to him. All right. Now, the person who translated this was translated quite long ago. Sometimes they use different words. So, for example, science. If you are familiar with our DRBA translation, you would substitute the word form for science. Okay, so don't get confused. Just look beyond the words for the meaning or the principle. Okay. When you progress like this, you shall before long be able to study the perfection of wisdom either from a book or from the mouth of a monk who preaches Dharma. And you should treat as the teacher that person from whom you may come to hear the perfection of wisdom. You should be grateful and thankful, and you should think, "This is my good friend. When I have heard the perfection of wisdom from him, I shall soon become irreversible from full enlightenment, shall be quite near the Tathagatas, shall be reborn in Buddha fields in which Tathagatas are not lacking, and avoiding the unfortunate rebirths, I shall accomplish an auspicious rebirth." Okay? Now, for all of you who have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, or even you have not, that's an excellent intention behind why you should practice. This example right here. Okay? And we are right now hearing the perfection of wisdom. That's what we are doing. So you're halfway there. Okay? Not fully there yet. You're halfway, but also a lot of work to do. Okay. Also, when he says, "I shall soon become irreversible from full enlightenment," there are two ways to look at that. The closest to us right now, when in terms of meaning of that sentence, would be in the form of a stream enterer. That's the first stage arhat, when he says become irreversible. Because when you become a first stage arhat, your relationship with your skandhas are different, because you understand the concept of no self. You no longer identify with the skandhas as the self anymore. Although you still have defilements, but the level of purity that you have gained ensures that you will never fall back. That's why it is said that once you become a stream enterer, within 7 births or rebirths or less, you are definitely bound to end birth and death. Definite. It's just the rest depends on your past karma determining your future cultivation and your present, how hard you work in your present. But it's guaranteed by within 7 times. Also, by then, you have full confidence in the Buddha. You have full faith in the teachings of the Buddha as well as yourself that you can achieve it. And why is this? Well, your confidence in the Dharma comes not so much the Dharma itself, but from you, from your own wisdom. Your inherent wisdom comes forth. And when your inherent wisdom comes forth, any Dharma that you hear or any sutra that you read, you have 100% confidence because it speaks to your direct experience with the Dharma. It's not you learning some principle from outside, it's you qualifying the Dharma. So at that time, because you have seen for yourself the reality of things, the things as they are, that's why you have 100% confidence in the Dharma. Okay, you may not understand the Dharma fully yet. It's kind of like looking through a little hole. The whole world is in front of you, but you only have a little hole to pick out of. But that's enough to give you confidence that that world exists. Although you may not, and you are aware you cannot see the whole world. But from what you can see, you are fully confident that yes, the world exists. Kind of like that kind of analogy. All right. Then the Buddha says, when you weigh up the sound, the voice from thin air says, when you weigh up these advantages, you are bound to treat that monk who preaches Dharma as the teacher or as your teacher. You should not follow him with motives of worldly gain, but from desire for Dharma out of respect for Dharma. Here Dharma should actually be a capital D, but I tried not to change too much. It says, you must also see through Mara's deeds, for there is always Mara, the evil one, who may suggest that your teacher tends, enjoys, and honors things that can be seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touched, when in actual fact he does so from skill in means and has really risen above them. This is when, say, like an arhat, they are no longer mistaken in terms of their relationship with the skandhas. So the difference between someone who has ended birth and death and someone normal like us is that the arhats still have the 5 skandhas, but it is no longer the 5. It's called the clinging 5 skandhas or the clinging 5 aggregates. There's no longer any clinging to them. So because there's no longer any clinging to them, they are no longer confused through their own skandhas of what the world is. Okay, and what the skandhas represent? Well, things that can be seen, heard, smell, taste, or touch. That's part of the 5 skandhas. Okay, so the voice is saying that when you meet a teacher who abides in emptiness and can teach you about emptiness, don't let Mara tell you otherwise. Okay, that's what the voice is saying. You must have confidence in your teacher. And it says, you should therefore not lose confidence in him, but say to yourself, I do not know that skill in means as he wisely knows it. Say, I do not know that skill in means as he wisely knows it. That means he may understand expedient means, but not him yet, not yourself. He tends, enjoys, and honors these dharmas in order to discipline beings, in order to win wholesome roots for them. For no attachment to objective support exists in bodhisattvas. After that, you should contemplate the true reality of dharmas, that is, that all dharmas are without defilement and purification. For all dharmas are empty in their own being. They have none of the properties of a living being. They have no life, no individuality, no personality. They are like an illusion, a dream, an echo, a reflected image. This language is reminiscent of all Prajna Sutras. Okay, you study any Prajna Sutra, you will come across this language. Now, this situation that the voice is warning the Bodhisattva about, if you have read the Avatamsaka Sutra, and in the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's chapter 39 called Entering the Dharma Realm, and it is about the good youth Sudana, who embarks on his journey to Buddhahood, and he meets the first teacher, I think is Manjushri Bodhisattva, is his first teacher, who then sends him to search for his next teacher. And when he meets the next teacher, then he goes on a consecutive sequence of I think how many teachers? Is it 13? I don't remember how many teachers right now. 52?
52.
I can't recall. 52?
52.
Okay, great. Thank you, Melinda. So, you know what? Okay, I may have something that might be useful. Where is my... Okay. Okay, gallery, photo, gallery. No. Okay, probably not. Sorry about that. Okay, anyway, I have a poster that shows that explains a bit, but since I can't find it, let me see. Sorry. Let me get back to the. Okay, all right. You all see it now? The share screen.
Master, that's why I make mistake. Shouldn't 52, it's 53. Sorry, 53.
53. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, Melinda, can you see the slides on the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so let me see. Yes, so in chapter 39, okay, one of the teachers that Sudana is sent to has built a mountain of knives, and he would climb up this mountain of knives, and in the middle of the mountain he would jump down into a pool of fire. And when Sudana went to look for him, he told Sudana, okay, well, if you are seeking the Dharma, you climb this mountain of knives and you hurl yourself down into that pit of fire. And Sudana had the doubt. He said, hey, it's very hard to get a human body, he had a few doubts, and his confidence in this so-called teacher was shaken. He said, could this be Mara? Then one by one, all the kings of all the different heavens, not just the kings of the heavens, their entourage, all the different devas from the heavens, all appeared to him one by one. Group by group, including the king, excuse me, king of yakshas, the king of dragons, the king of all the different spiritual realms. They all appeared to him and said that, oh, this bodhisattva, this teacher is actually using the expedient means to teach living beings. And they all describe how he's climbing the mountain of knives and jumping into the pit of fire. What did it teach each individual group? So by the end, the youth Sudana was convinced that, oh, okay, so this is a real teacher. So from the Brahma heaven right down to the kings of all the spirits, they all came to beseech Sudana. So this story is kind of related to that. Okay, now the voice says, when you thus contemplate the true reality of all dharmas and follow the preacher of dharma, you shall before long go forth into the perfection of wisdom. But you must watch out for yet another deed of Mara. If the preacher of Dharma should dishearten you by what he says, that should not make you averse to the perfection of wisdom, but with a mind that desires only Dharma, that respects only Dharma, you should, unwearied, follow the monk who preaches Dharma. So actually, I just found my notes, okay, on the Sudana and that teacher who he thought was Mara in disguise, wanting to destroy him. It was teacher number 9, and that teacher's name was Jayo Smatyatana. I'm 100% sure I pronounced that wrong. And so he says, he told Sudana, he said, if you are now able to climb this mountain of knives and throw yourself down into this bonfire, all of the bodhisattva practices will be purified. So of course, just like any normal person, although Sudana wasn't normal like us, he was a great practitioner. What did he think to himself? He says, okay, to even acquire a human body is difficult. To abandon the 8 difficulties is difficult. These are known as the 8 sufferings. To acquire a circumstance free of the difficulties or free of suffering is difficult. To obtain the pure Dharma is difficult. To encounter a Buddha is difficult. To become possessed of complete faculties is difficult. To hear the Dharma of the Buddha is difficult. To meet good people is difficult. To encounter a genuine good spiritual guide or teacher is difficult. To adopt right teachings that accord with principle is difficult. To acquire right livelihood is difficult. And to practice in accordance with the Dharma is difficult. That's what he thought when he was told to climb the mountain of knives. Now, all of you here should be very, very grateful, okay, to yourself, to your past lives, and to whatever Shufu, Guanyin Pusat, and anyone else you can think of who has helped you to be where you are today, because Sudana, the youth Sudana, knows that to be in this position with the Dharma is very, very difficult. Okay? So why is he reflecting on this? Because he says, could this not be Mara or an emissary of Mara? That means someone, someone who's together with Mara. Could this not be a dangerous and evil minion of Mara who is falsely manifesting the appearance of a bodhisattva and a good spiritual guide. One who wants to create an obstacle to my planting roots of goodness, one who wants to create an obstacle to my continuing this life, one who aims to obstruct my cultivation of the path to all knowledge, one who wants to drag me into the wretched destinies, etc., etc. Why? Because in this very life, Sudana had overcome all those difficulties. He had a human body. He was trying to overcome the 8 difficulties. He was trying to obtain the pure Dharma, teacher by teacher. He could encounter the Dharma. So that's what the Sudana was thinking of. Okay, and that's why this voice from thin air, the voice is not identified, is warning the Bodhisattva in our story not to give up. Okay, if Mara were to try to influence him. Okay, now after receiving this admonition from the voice, the Bodhisattva journeyed east. Then before long, suddenly it occurred to him, say, he didn't really get proper directions. He just knew he had to go east, but how far he has to go, he doesn't know. So what did he do? He stood there and just cried and just lamented. And actually, that's what his name means. Yeah, his name means, I think his name means the one who cries. He just stood there 7 days. 7 days he stood waiting for further instructions from the voice. And he paid no attention to anything else. He took no food, but simply paid homage to perfect wisdom. So the Buddha said, a man, Subhuti, who had lost his only child would be very sad and unhappy, and he could think of one thing only, his son and the sorrow he feels from him. So the Buddha is giving a metaphor now. Even so, the Bodhisattva could at the time think of nothing else except, when then shall I hear this perfection of wisdom? When the Bodhisattva thus sorrowed and pined away, a Tathagata frame suddenly stood before him, gave his approval. Okay, what is Tathagata frame? An image of a Buddha, okay, or a form of a Buddha. So after 7 days, okay, then a Buddha appeared in front of him and says, for the Buddhas of the past, the same thing also happened. They searched for perfect wisdom in the same spirit. We should now search for it. It says, in this same spirit of your vigor and determination, of your zeal and zest, go east. So it says, keep on going east. But now it's more specific. The Buddha gives him 500 leagues. Okay, 500 leagues east from here is a town called Gandavati. So it's very specific. Now, there are a few paragraphs of the Buddha describing the town, which we will not go into, but it's very reminiscent of how a pure land is described, because the metaphors are the same. Like the number 7, they represent something. I can't remember what right now. I can look it up. Yeah. So this image of the Buddha says that in this, the Bodhisattva Dharmogata is the one you are looking for. He's the one who can teach you the perfection of wisdom. Okay, and he's in a pulpit. He will be seated on a pulpit in this town called Gandavati. And then, so this commentary goes on to this Shastra, goes the perfection of wisdom. Oh my God, excuse me. Okay, so it says, let me see. So he exhorts the Bodhisattva to go to him. Just go to him. It says, go on day and night, giving your undivided attention to the task. Before long, you shall hear the perfection of wisdom. All right? Okay. So now, our Bodhisattva, after hearing this, became very happy. And then it says, a man hit with a poison arrow could not think of anything else except, where shall I find a surgeon, a skilled physician who can pull out this arrow and free me from this suffering? Just so, the Bodhisattva at that time pays no attention to any Dharma except, When shall I see that son of a good family, in other words, his future teacher, from whom I shall hear the perfection of wisdom? When I have heard that Dharma, I shall forsake all attentions to a basis. That English is weird. It says, without leaving the place where he was, the Bodhisattva then heard the Bodhisattva Dhammo Gata demonstrating the perfection of wisdom. So miraculously, because of his sincerity, I guess, right after this, he was able to hear the perfection of wisdom being taught. And it is said that as a result, he produced a perception which did not lean on any dharma. Perception here means he entered samadhi, he entered concentration. And does not lean on any dharma means it was an unconditioned state. Condition means it depends on something like the right weather, the right frame of mind, or that he had to be sitting in a certain way, or his mind had to be calm. No, this was unconditioned, so it was very pure. It was what do you call it? Unconditioned. In Yogacara, it's just one of the unconditioned states. Then he saw Buddhas and he saw the Buddhas and Buddhas in the countless world systems in the 10 directions. And all of them spoke to him. It says, we also have in the past, when we were Bodhisattvas, searched for the perfection of wisdom in just the same way. We also, while we were searching, acquired those concentrations which we have just acquired. That means I encountered the text list down, I think about 10 samadhis, 10 different concentrations. So the Buddhas are telling him, you are doing things right. Don't worry, you're doing things right. Keep on doing what you're doing. That's the confidence boost given by the Buddhas. And anyone who's ever practiced, and if you ever get that kind of if you've ever been on the receiving end from either so-called, I will use the word divine message, or from someone you fully trust, it works wonders for your confidence, because until you know, sometimes you don't really know. You try your best, but you don't really know if you're on the right path. Or even if you do, just to hear those words is very comforting. And a great boost of confidence. So that's what the Buddhas are doing here. And the Buddha says, you should therefore fill your mind with respect for these dharmas of the Buddhas, so that you should increasingly desire them, so that you should become more and more zealous for them. Because the supreme enlightenment is not hard to get for one who desires it, who is zealous for it. For the good friend also should you arouse intense respect and affection, and serene should be your confidence in him. For it is when they have been taken hold of by the good friend that Bodhisattva shall quickly know full enlightenment. So now the Bodhisattva asked the Tathagata, who is this good friend you are talking about? What good friend? And the Buddha said, the Bodhisattva Dhammo Gata has for a long time matured you for the supreme enlightenment. He has upheld you, he has been your preceptor in perfect wisdom, in skill in means, and in the dharmas of a Buddha. It was he who has upheld you, and for that friendly deed, you must honor him in gratitude and thankfulness, and you must bear in mind what he has done for you. If son of a good family, you should for 1 eon, or for 2 eons, or for eons, sometimes is referred to as kalpas, or for up to 100,000 kalpas or more, carry about the Bodhisattva Dhamma Gata like a turban on your head, would furnish him with everything that makes beings happy, and will present him with as many forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touchables as there are in the great tricolorism. Even then, you would not have repaid that son of good family for what he has done for you. For it has happened through his might that you have acquired these concentrations, that you have heard of the perfection of wisdom and of skill in means, and that you have gained the perfection of wisdom. So the Buddha has revealed to him, what you're experiencing now is due to the kindness and compassion of your good friend, okay, your future teacher, this Bodhisattva, who has helped you along for so long, but you don't know. After the Tathagatas had comforted the Bodhisattva, they again disappeared. But the Bodhisattva emerged from his concentration and asked himself, from where did those Buddhas come from and where have they gone? So that's his question. Okay, he was in samadhi, he was in concentration, and he had this state where the Buddhas came, comforted him, encouraged him, gave him advice, told him that this future teacher of yours has actually been helping you for so long that even if you carry him for 100,000 kalpas, you will not be able to repay his kindness. And then he he got up from his samadhi and they were gone, right? So his question is actually very normal. He's wondering, was it real? You know, or maybe he has no question whether it was real or not, but he's questioning, wait a minute, where did those Buddhas come from? Were they only in my mind? You know, like he's trying to figure out his experience. So that's his question. And we're running out of time because you have to tune in next week to find out, because when that's the question he asks when he meets his future teacher. So his future teacher, if you read the deeds of Bodhisattvas, you realize that Bodhisattvas spend countless. To save a living being is not easy. Why? Because to save a living being means you have to do all kinds of things for the living being to finally think that it's their own idea to want to have the Bodhi resolve. Why? Because you cannot force living beings to do something. You cannot force someone to practice. You cannot force someone to follow the precepts. Those things you cannot do. They have to do it. Living beings have to do those things by their own accord. They have to be vegetarians by their own accord. But what you can do is to make them happy, to try to adjust certain conditions, you know, when the time is right, when they are conducive to walking the path, so that in the end, because you have helped them at every step of the way, it becomes very natural for them to say, leave home. It becomes very natural for them to take the 5 precepts. But a lot of the work is you who have done. It's just like raising a kid. All right? Yeah, raising a kid. Although I've never raised a kid, but I think this example makes sense. You know, the baby who takes his first few steps, who goes to school, who decides they want to be a doctor or a teacher or fireman or to do something, it's all possible because of the parents. The parents have, and their teachers have contributed a lot of time, energy, effort into guiding the child every step of the way. But as far as the child is concerned, you know, the child has to make that decision themselves. They can't be forced into it. Forcing doesn't really work. And when the child makes the decision, it is as if the decision comes from the child itself. You know, whereas, oh my, excuse me. Whereas it has been, it's not one-sided. It's, you know, it takes 2, but there has been a lot of effort from the parents or parent, right? So that's the job of a bodhisattva. You have to try all kinds of skillful means, expedient means for someone, a living being, life after life after life, until they are ready to make the Bodhi resolve in a proper way, in a way that actually leads to transformation. Then life after life, they progress. Yeah. That's how you save living beings. I used to think that saving living being was, oh, when someone's drowning, you literally save them, or, you know, but no. You saving living beings is being able to guide them to walk the Noble Eightfold Path and the Bodhisattva path. That's what it means to save living beings. And that's why it's so difficult to save living beings. Okay, so it's time. Melinda has a question, but before we get to Melinda's question, does anyone else have any questions? Anyone? No, I always ask, but never get anyone. Okay, maybe I ask Melinda. Melinda, can you ask your question?
Okay. It's regarding the offering the new food to the Buddha at home.
Okay.
Is besides the 6 vegetarian days per month. What about normal days? If we offer new food to the Buddha at home, is there a time limit? This is my question. Thank you.
Time limit, meaning what? What do you mean by time limit?
For example, can we offer food to the Buddha, let's say in the evening, let's say 5 p.m. like that?
Okay. The offering of food to the Buddha is symbolic. It is even if there's a proper time, say before noon, for example, it's not as if the Buddha is going to eat it, right? So offering of food to the Buddha is symbolic. What is it symbolic of? At its let me see. It's kind of like you have a favorite person, like a child with a grandparents. Okay, and I'm talking about an ideal situation. A child with a grandparents, and the child, if the child has sweet or something, and the child happily offers it to the grandmother before the child takes it himself. Why? Because the child really cares, really loves the grandmother, and the child has done it before and has seen how the grandmother is so happy. The grandmother puts on the show, exaggerate her features, like, oh wow, this is for me, thank you. So the child learns how giving can make people happy. and the child doesn't really understand, but the child feels that when the grandmother is happy, he's happy as well. So at one perspective is that pure form of giving. The second one is because the Buddha is our teacher, and our respect. Before we eat, we offer it to the Buddha. So the 6 days, okay, for some people to do that every day is very difficult. So when you take the Bodhisattva precept, the 6 days is meant to instill that habit in you in a more manageable way. But if you come to the temple, we do it all the time. We do it every day, right? So minimum is 6 days if you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts. But if your heart is in the right place, anytime you want to eat, you'll be mindful of your teacher. Something like that. So you can offer at any time. You don't have to. There's no right time. There's no wrong time. Okay, when you offer to a monk, of course, you only offer during mealtime, right? But when you offer to the Buddha or to Shifu, it's different. You do it because it makes you happy. And our respect and reverence to you're kind of like repaying the kindness symbolically. You are repaying the kindness of the Buddha and Shifu. So offering food is one way. Okay, and also, one of the contemplations that we make for food before we eat is to sustain ourselves, not because we are chasing after flavors or good health, but because we want to pursue the Dharma. So we need a healthy body to do that. And to be able to pursue the Dharma comes from having a teacher. So that's one way of showing gratitude. Okay, so when we offer the food to the Buddha or the teacher, it's not because it's not a ritual. Okay, I mean it is a ritual, but it is not something you do like a robot. Okay, it's not every time before I eat I just offer. It means you do it without thinking. It's not an automatic thing. What should happen is that as you offer it, you remind yourself that the food you're going to eat is to pursue the Dharma. So you are helping yourself cut off food as a source of desire or attachment. Does that make sense, Melinda?
I understand the whole logic already. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to add to Melinda's question?
But so I have this one concept, but don't know whether is it right or is it according to the Dharma. Daytime means is the eating time for Buddha. Evening is for those spirits, is it? I don't know whether it's correct.
Morning. The Buddha's meal time is in the morning. That's why if you come to the temple, we eat at 10 something. The meal offering is at 10:30. So the Buddha would eat in the morning. And then Shufu mentioned this before. Afternoon is for humans and animals or something like that. And then evening is for spirits. I can't remember. But something like you said, yeah. Okay, so coming back to the making offerings, because sometimes like in the temple we do it every day, it becomes a job, it becomes a role, and the practice behind it goes away. So when people do it, they're given instructions that, oh, you have to make it nice. So the aim is to make it nice. So they take a lot of effort in making the bowl nice, because they're afraid that if the bowl of food is not presentable, they might get scolded. But a proper way of making an offering is, an easy way is to imagine that Shufu is really going to eat that offering bowl. Imagine if it's really getting served to Shufu, but he only eats one small little bowl. And how are you going to, present it to him? And when you do that, and in your heart you imagine that Shufu is really going to eat it, it transforms the whole intentionality behind it. Even as you are packing the rice into the bowl, as you are selecting the vegetables, it still may end up the same. Of course, you want to make it look nice, but the journey from the beginning to the end, the heart couldn't be more different than if you were doing it as a job. You're doing it because this is what we do every day. One is empty, okay, but not in a good way, not like the Prashna text where it talks about emptiness, not in that kind of emptiness, empty. It's just you are empty, like an empty vessel, no merit. The other one, okay, makes you happy. All right, the other one makes you glad, brings you joy. You look forward to it. It makes you proud. When you put it in front of Shufu, you know, it reduces you to like a little kid, that kind of feeling. You're just full of pure joy and happiness. Okay, so don't make the offerings into a robotic movement where, it's just done because it's customs, it's tradition. No, don't let that happen. All right, put your heart into it. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, next week we will finish our story with Sada Prarudita, the Bodhisattva. Okay, for now, let us transfer merit. Okay, let me get the slides. Excuse me. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light Dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, Amitabha. We'll see you all next week. Okay, bye-bye.